Hi, just want to give you guys another example of comparative advantage to help you work through a problem. So in this particular case, we begin with two countries, the United States and Mexico. Now the United States can produce 500 cars or 50 large machines in the same time period that Mexico can produce 400 cars or 25 machines. Notice I'm emphasizing that word "or" there because it's letting you know it's a choice. They can do all of one or all of the other. These are going to be your endpoints on your PPF. The problem also gives us where on the production possibility frontier each country is choosing to produce. So currently we've got the United States producing at 200 cars and 30 machines, and Mexico is producing at 160 cars and 15 machines. So notice this time we see those "and," so that lets us know they are able to produce that combination of cars and machines at the same time. The problem also told us that both countries are operating on their PPF, but if you want to do the math to verify, you certainly can verify that 230 is on the United States PPF and 160 and 15 will be on Mexico's PPF. So then the first natural question that might come up once you're given this information is who has the absolute advantage? Now you do not have to draw out your production possibility frontiers, but I do believe that it helps. It helps to, I guess, cement the idea in your mind a little bit. So when we're talking about absolute advantage, we're talking about who has the ability to make more. We're talking about the endpoints. So it has nothing to do with the I guess these points at 230 or 160 and 15, it has to do with the actual endpoints, the 500 and the 50, the 400 and the 25. So if I say who has the absolute advantage in producing cars, then you're going to look at those endpoints for cars and you'll see that the United States can produce 500, Mexico can produce 400. The United States has the ability to produce more cars than Mexico. So who has the absolute advantage in cars? The answer would be the United States. What about machines? Well, same thing. The United States can make 50 machines in the same time that it would take Mexico to make 25. As such, the United States has the absolute advantage in machines. So absolute advantage is simply who has the ability to produce more. It is not the foundation of trade. We're going to see we're not going to work all the way through it, but in theory, right, it doesn't matter who has absolute advantage. One country could have absolute advantage in both goods. One country could have absolute advantage in one good, or one country can have absolute advantage in neither good, and yet we're still going to find that there are potential gains from trade. So in order to start thinking about trade, the first step is calculating the opportunity cost. And so one of the things that I pointed out in class is that the easiest way to do this is to set the endpoints equal. So you're going to take the endpoints for a single country and you're going to set them equal. So for the United States, that would be 500 cars equals 50 machines. So if I ask you for the opportunity cost of cars, you're going to solve that equation, that 500 cars equals 50 machines, you're going to solve that for one car. So how do you go from 500 cars to one car? You've got to divide both sides of the equation by 500. And so what you're going to end up with is that one car equals 1/10 machines. So that would be your answer. If you are taking a test and you have to find the opportunity cost for cars, your answer is going to be in terms of machines. If the question had asked for the opportunity cost of machines, then you would essentially flip that around. You're going to still use your 500 cars equals 50 machines, but this time you're going to solve for one machine. So we would divide both sides of the equation by 50 in order to get down to one machine, and 500 divided by 50 equals 10 cars. So the opportunity cost in the United States for one machine is 10 cars. We could repeat that same process for Mexico, and I'm going to switch up the color here just to make things stand out a bit more. So we've got 400 cars equals 25 machines. Again, those were the endpoints for Mexico. So if you're asked about the opportunity cost for machines, I switched the order here just to keep you on your toes. So the opportunity cost for machines in Mexico means you're going to solve that equation for one machine. So I'm going to divide both sides by 25. And I'm going to get 16 cars. Again, if I'm asked for the opportunity cost of machines, my answer is going to be in terms of cars. Please, please do not drop your goods or your units. It is probably one of the quickest ways to make a mistake in these problems. The opportunity cost of cars in Mexico, again, now I'm going to switch this. So if I'm looking for the opportunity cost of cars, then I am solving for one car. So I would divide both sides by 400. And what I'm going to end up with is that the opportunity cost of one car is 1/16 of a machine. So once you find the opportunity cost, the next step is to determine who has comparative advantage. So with comparative advantage, that is the underlying theory for trade. This is determining what people should specialize in, right? And then determining essentially the trade patterns from there. So to determine what somebody should specialize in, remember that people should specialize in that for which they have the lowest opportunity cost. And I did not write that down, so I am going to make a note here in the margins. So specialize in that for which you have the lowest opportunity cost. Okay, so for example, if we were looking at machines, for the United States, the opportunity cost of one machine is 10 cars. For Mexico, the opportunity cost of one machine is 16 cars. So you've got to compare like to like here, right? This one machine and one machine. So I'm comparing one machine in the U.S. to one machine in Mexico. In the U.S., to produce one machine means we have to produce 10 fewer cars. In Mexico, to produce one machine, we'd have to produce 16 fewer cars. So the United States can produce machines at the lower opportunity cost, and as a result, the U.S. has comparative advantage in machines. So the United States should specialize in machines. Let's double check that we get kind of the opposite here for cars. So in the U.S., one car costs 1/10 of a machine to produce. In Mexico, one car costs 1/16 of a machine. 1/16 is less than 1/10. So you can grab your calculators if you need to convert that to a decimal, or you can take my word for it. But 1/16 is less than 1/10. So that means that Mexico's opportunity cost for cars is less than the opportunity cost for cars in the United States. So Mexico has the comparative advantage in cars. So when we think about specializing, in the extreme cases, that means you would use all of your resources towards that one item which you are relatively best in. So if the United States has comparative advantage in machines, and the United States is going to specialize in the production of machines, the United States will use all of their resources towards machines. The most machines we can produce in the United States will be 50 machines. And when we use all of our resources towards machines, that will leave none available for cars, thus the 0 cars. Mexico has comparative advantage in cars. So Mexico is going to use all of their resources towards cars, and they'll be able to produce 400 cars during that time, leaving them with no resources available to produce machines. So we're going to end up with 50 machines produced by the United States and 400 cars produced by Mexico. How does this compare to when we didn't trade? Remember that both countries were on their PPFs. Both countries were efficient before. We had the United States at 200 cars and 30 machines. We had Mexico at 160 cars and 15 machines. Now, if I were to add up the number of cars that were produced, 200 in Mexico, 200 in the United States, 160 in Mexico, that's going to leave me with 360 cars produced. For the machines, I had 30 being produced in the United States, 15 in Mexico, for a total of 45 machines. With specialization, we now see that the United States is going to produce 50 machines. So I'm comparing this 50 machines to that 45. We have produced 5 more machines between the two countries than what we had before. Mexico is producing 400 cars. Before, we were producing 360 combined. So we now have 40 more cars being produced. We haven't gotten to the trade part, but what have I just shown you? That the world is now producing more stuff because we specialize in that for which we have comparative advantage. That is a big underlying theme to why trade and specialization are so great. Again, both countries were efficient on their PPFs before, but we have now increased our total production of stuff for no other reason than these countries have specialized in that for which they have comparative advantage. Now, in order for these countries to trade, we have to find a mutually beneficial price. So how do you find a mutually beneficial price, right? A price that's good for both parties. Well, the minimum price is going to be set by the person who is producing the good. So if we're talking about machines, the United States is producing machines. How much does it cost the United States to produce a machine? It costs the United States 10 cars to produce that machine. Okay, the maximum price is going to be set by the person who's looking to buy that item. So Mexico is currently producing cars. They're looking to buy machines. Now, Mexico could produce their own machines, right? But what would it cost Mexico to produce their own machine? It would cost Mexico 16 cars to do it themselves. So the United States is setting a minimum here. United States is going to say, we'll sell you machines, but we're not selling them for anything less than 10. And Mexico's over here saying, we're interested in buying your machines, knowing that we could do them ourselves. We could do them ourselves for 16 cars, so we'll buy it from you as long as we get a price that's less than 16. So you've got the United States here, if you think about this as a number line. The United States is saying, hey, this is 10 cars. Anything above 10 will work for the U.S., and I'll change colors here. Mexico is saying 16 is our limit. That's our opportunity cost. Anything below 16 will work. And where those two overlap, so this range between 10 and 16, right? Any price in there, whether it's one machine for 11 cars or one machine for 15.5 cars, anything in that range between 10 cars and 16 cars will work for the price of a machine. Well, that's it for this video. Hopefully this made more sense. I do have other videos with tables that are a bit more in depth, but I want to make sure that you all have at least the basics to master comparative advantage. Good luck, and as always, let me know if you have any questions.